Now, Steve Witkoff has been handling the negotiations between Russia and Ukraine, but Republicans like Don Bacon are calling for him to be fired. Not only because of the debacle that happened with that so-called peace deal that was created by America, created by Russia, created by America, created by Russia, that basically gave Russia everything that they wanted, a 28-point plan that laid out exactly what Russia wants for Ukraine. Not only did that happen, and the debacle of them not being able to clearly state who wrote that plan, Steve Witkoff was actually caught on audio coaching a Russian official on how they can finesse Bone Spurs to get what they want. Now just think about this for a minute. Bone Spurs is so weak, so gullible, so pliable that his own administration is coaching officials from adversary countries on how to get him to do what they want because he is that predictable and that weak-minded. And like I said, Republicans like Don Bacon are calling for him to be fired, and Republicans like Brian Fitzpatrick are openly against Witkoff handling the situation. And even though he says that Marco Rubio should be free to handle the situation like he would, I think Marco Rubio needs to be fired over this as well, because he is obviously inept to do what he needs to do in this situation. Now, Bone Spurs was asked about the phone call that Witkoff had with the Russian official, and he didn't seem to understand the question because he said that it was standard negotiating, that they need to know how to convince each side to take the deal.
Too many people.
Have you heard this audio that Bloomberg has of Witkoff coaching the Russians on how to appeal to you?
Well, I haven't heard it, no, but that's a standard thing, because he's got to sell this to Ukraine. He's got to sell Ukraine to Russia. That's what a deal maker does. You got to say, look, they want this. You got to convince them with this. That's a very standard form of negotiation. I haven't heard it, but I heard it was standard negotiation. And I would imagine he's saying the same thing to Ukraine, because each party has to give and take.
But the thing is, that wasn't the question. The question was what he thinks of Witkoff coaching a Russian official on how to speak to him to get him to do what they want. He didn't answer that. He was either confused about the question or he deliberately pivoted away from it, because he might actually like Witkoff telling that Russian official what to do in order to please him enough to give them what they want. Why? Because Bone Spurs get something out of it. Something tells me that Witkoff isn't doing that necessarily behind his back, because as long as Bone Spurs personally benefits from whatever it is that he's doing, he doesn't see a problem with it, even if it is going to hurt and unalive millions of people. And Witkoff is definitely proving himself to be pro-Russia and against Ukraine, which, if anybody is confused, Russia is the adversary. Ukraine is the ally. Being against Russia used to be the staple of the Republican Party, but all of that seemed to change in 2015 when Bone Spurs entered the fray. And it definitely changed policy-wise when Bone Spurs took office, not only the first time, but this time. And with all of those emails indicating that Putin has incriminating information about Bone Spurs, I wonder why that is.